Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for inviting me. Uh, when I was invited, I asked Sally what I was expected to wear. And she said, well, it's a formal event, so you should really wear a suit. And then I saw that Ebuka was the compere, and I thought, if they allow Ebuka to wear one of his flamboyant agbadas, I'm going to protest. And then I saw Adetayo looking quite relaxed, and I felt a bit, I too could have been a bit relaxed, but I thought, okay, he's a tech guy. Tech guys don't wear suits, so I'll forgive him. But it's a real honor to have been invited to address you today. And congratulations to all the graduates. I'm going to be sharing a few experiences with you, but before I do that, let me just pick on what Fadul, Adetayo, and others have said. And I'll say it very simply. If you're obtaining your Bachelor's of Business Administration today, congratulations. Please do a Master's of Business Administration as well. For organizations like the one I run, the minimum entry requirement for any position is a master's, any position. If you're graduating from an MBA class today, please do a DBA. It's very competitive out there. And you want to give yourself as much of a chance as possible. So the higher the degree you have, the better the chances you have. Unfortunately, the world is just wired that way, so do give yourself as much of a chance as you can. I'm supposed to have a presentation running, but I don't see it yet. But I will start to speak while I'm waiting for it to come up. So Ebuka has introduced me briefly. I'll tell you a bit more, and I'll emphasize that I'm not telling you a bit more because I want to blow my trumpet, although I have every right to blow my trumpet. If you've got your BBA or your MBA, don't let anybody stop you from blowing your trumpet. It's not easy. So I'll tell you a bit more, but it's because it will lead into a point that I want to make. So my first degree was in law. I then did a master's in business law, and if you do a master's in business law, you share a lot of classes with MBA students first before you then branch out to start focusing on law. I'm a barrister and solicitor in Nigeria. I'm also a solicitor in England and Wales. But my PhD is not in law. My PhD is in governance and public policy because all of my work, even after my law degrees, were actually in governance. And for the last 30 years or so, I've worked in different countries across different tiers of government on various things. I had the unusual privilege to have worked in 10 Downing Street when Tony Blair was president, driving public service reforms in the UK. And that's quite funny, actually, because if you work in Downing Street, they don't ask you which university you went to. They just ask you which college, because they already know it's either Oxford or Cambridge, so we just need to know the college. So when you tell them it's University of Calabar, everybody is confused. The next question is, so how did you get here? Answer is usually because I am very good at what I do. And so you don't have to have gone to Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard or anywhere to actually prove your worth. And from my humble University of Calabar, in November, I'll be part of the faculty, temporary faculty at Oxford University, training the new government of Brazil, which will be having their elections next month. Um, I then had an opportunity to drive public service reforms in Nigeria because President Jonathan said, "Oh, you've preached at us enough. Come and try it and let's see." So I did that for 4 years, and then I left because I could no longer afford to live on a government salary, and I didn't want to steal any money. So I left and went back to the private sector. I'm currently vice president and country director of DAI, an international development company that works in more than 100 countries. And my academic interests are looking for how to make things work in places where things don't work. So as you can imagine, I'm in a natural environment in Nigeria. I'm also interested in political economy analysis. I'm interested in behavioral science. So I wrote a book about 3 or 4 months ago, which is titled Nigerians in Theory. And it tries to address how Nigerians think and behave. So I can tell you for a fact that when I finish my speech, or at least I hope that when I finish my speech, I will get a round of applause. But I can bet you any money that Ebuka will say, "Give him another round of applause." All our MCs do that. I'm also interested in quality management systems, and I'm interested in health and safety. The reason why I've told you all this is so that you can see the broad range of things that I've done and I'm interested in. Because according to Robert Greene, the future belongs to those who learn more skills and combine them in creative ways. So, I'm an employer of labor, of course. When most people come for interviews, particularly most Nigerians, and you ask them, what are you most proud of? Most of the time, they'll tell you, I have a BBA, I have an MBA. They'll tell you the degree they have. And they should be rightly proud of that. But if you go on to ask them, okay, apart from your degree, what are you the most proud of? 9 times out of 10, you get a blank look. Because many people don't actually acquire additional skills or translate them. So if you ask someone now, say you're interviewing someone and you say, "Oh, I need project management experience. Do you have any project management experience?" They will tell you no. Are you married? Yes. Did you plan your wedding? Yes. Isn't a wedding a project? Doesn't it have a beginning, a middle, and an end? Doesn't it have a budget? Doesn't it have contingencies? You know, DJ may not turn up, something may happen. Doesn't it have managing stakeholders, including the in-laws? What project can be harder to manage than a successful wedding? And this is the point I'm making about transferring your experience, right? Transferring your experience drawn from your private life, your family life, whatever it is. Because, you know, a job interview is essentially a sales pitch for you. You're trying to sell yourself to the person, right? So you use whatever experience you have. It doesn't just have to be the experiences you gained at work. It could be, you know, helping your mom out in the shop. You will not believe how important that is as an experience. It could be looking after an aged parent. It doesn't matter what it is. The important thing is, can you relate it? Can you combine it with the other experiences you have and relate it to what the person is looking for? So that's quite important. I'm a bit disappointed that my slides don't work. I demand an explanation because I sent it well in advance. And while I wait for that, as you can tell, I can be a bit troublesome. right? I embarrass my kids all the time. So I go to the airport and I get to the airport an hour and a half before as a responsible citizen. The time for the flight comes, no announcement. An hour later, they announce your flight has been delayed for operational reasons. And I go to them and say, what are operational reasons? I demand an explanation. Is your aircraft faulty? Is it late? You need to tell me something because I left my house 2-3 hours ago. If I'm traveling with my daughters, they say, oh, God, Dad, there he goes again, making trouble. But we have to, when we've done our own part, we have to demand that others do theirs too. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about 10 things. Of course, there are a plethora of skills that anyone can advise you about. And we could be here all day talking about different kinds of skills, but I'm going to focus on 10 that I want you to think about. And I think Fadl had actually mentioned at least 2 out of the 10. And the first one is what he called grit. So I'm going to quote Nelson Mandela when he said, I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony with equal opportunities. Now, here's the interesting bit. He then goes on to say, it is an ideal which I hope to live for and to see realized, but my Lord, if needs be, it is an ideal for which I'm prepared to die. Now, that is great. That is determination. That is an unshakable belief in what you want to do and the ideals that you hold dear to yourself. And if you're going to lead in this or any generation, you need that unshakable belief in your ideals. You need that grit to be able to overcome adversity and triumph. The second quality I'm going to talk about is the need to lead by example. What Sally has asked me to talk to you today about is emerging leaders, skills building for next generation leadership, and how to compete in a globalized world. So that's the context of what I wanted to talk about. And because I'm a part-time academic, definitions are very important. Okay, you find that, oh, you see, miracles happen when you complain. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so I was just coming to say how important definitions are. Because for those of us that are active on social media, you find a majority of the fights that people have that curse each other and abuse each other's parents is because they are using the same term to mean 2 different things. Okay, so if I tell you about restructuring, for instance, 20 people have different meanings, 20 different meanings to the word restructuring. So we've been asked to talk about leadership. So I'll define leadership as the ability to inspire, to arouse, to excite, or to motivate ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Okay? So it's not about forcing people. It's not about, do you know who I am? It's not about, I'm your boss. Okay? It's about inspiring, arousing, exciting, motivating ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And for those of you that follow sports, you will see in some cases a player playing for the manager and not for the club. And when it's playing for the manager, it's willing to play through the pain barrier to please that manager, because that manager has been able to inspire a certain thing in that player. That is what leadership is about. And here's an example of a country leader inspiring his country. We should fight on beaches. We should fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We should never surrender. And that was at a point at which Britain was facing bombardment by a superior German army. But that ability to turn the ordinary into extraordinary is what leadership is about, to my mind. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So we've talked about leadership. It's very important that that leadership is by example. Do not tell anybody to do what you cannot do yourself as a leader. Doesn't work. They won't respect you. Okay? So George Bush says leadership cannot simply be asserted or demanded. It must be demonstrated. Many of you will be familiar with the Chinua Achebe quote from The Trouble with Nigeria. He says, the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There's nothing basically wrong with the Nigerian land or climate or water or air or anything else. Then this is the crucial part, which people usually don't quote. He says, the Nigerian problem is the unwillingness or inability of its leaders to rise to the responsibility, to the challenge of personal example, which are the hallmarks of true leadership. And so, if you lead, you must lead by example. Don't require people to respond to emails by 9 o'clock at night when you yourself are taking the weekend off. That's not the way it works. You need to lead by example. Okay. Next slide, please. So the third thing I'm going to talk about is the need for vision. You need to be able to conceptualize where you're going and what it is you want to achieve. However, so you're looking at Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the guy that transformed Dubai from a small fishing village in the Arabian desert to Dubai of today. Okay, that started with a vision. However, Usain Bolt said, dreams are free, but goals have a cost. While you can daydream for free, goals don't come without a price. Time, effort, sacrifice, and sweat. Time, effort, sacrifice, and sweat. And his question is, how will you pay for your goals? So vision is important. To achieve that vision, time, effort, sacrifice, and sweat. You talk to a lot of young people and you tell them you need to work hard. And they'll tell you, no, I don't need to work hard. I need to work smart. And you say to them, okay, so how will you learn how to work smart until you work hard? Because it's the harder you work, the smarter you get at working. So you need to put in the sweat. You need to put in the time. You need to put in the effort. And you need to put in the sacrifice. Next slide, please. The fourth thing I'm going to talk about is the need for preparation. So Abraham Lincoln, I will prepare and someday my chance will come. I will prepare and someday my chance will come. Let's give an example of preparation. Usain Bolt. Do you know he made 5 million pounds sterling per second when he ran in Rio? 5 million pounds per second. But in order to do that, he lifted weights for 4 hours every day. He practiced his sprinting every day for 15 years before he arrived in Rio. So practicing sprinting every day and lifting weights 4 hours every day for 15 years before he arrived in Rio. And then as he was preparing to be a sprinter, he also readied himself to be a footballer or a cricketer in case he didn't make it as a sprinter. Do you see why I have so many different qualifications and experience? Because I don't know which one go gel. Okay. So, preparation is very important. And it is something we do quite badly in Nigeria. We do preparation quite badly. And if you're planning an event like this, for instance, I think Sally must have been chasing me for like 4 months, if not more, for when I was going to come to this event. A Nigerian will typically leave it till 2 weeks before. And then he starts looking for Obieze Kwesili, or start looking for someone else to come and speak. And if you say, what if they are not available? Our answer is usually, God will not let it happen. So you can see the level of preparation that is required for success. Next slide, please. This is Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. So you need to be adaptable. And again, Fadil mentioned it when he was speaking. So in my office now, we have 4 people who work for our US company. They don't work for me in Nigeria. They work for a US company, but they are based in my office. And we are recruiting an additional 6 soon, mostly IT people. And it's because my US office have been so impressed at the quality coming out of Nigeria that they've said, this is where we're going to recruit an additional 6 people from. These guys know how to solve problems. They just do. So, you don't need to jackpot if you have the right qualifications and experience. And the world has changed from what it was 3 years ago. We only now go into the office twice a week. Okay, the rest of the week we can work from anywhere. So you can actually be anywhere and work for any company. And the Indians probably piloted that, running customer care centers in India for companies across the world. So that's where the world is going, and you need to be able to adapt to that. Next slide, please. You need to accept responsibility for your future. Okay? The buck stops with you. And of course, it is comfortable to blame someone else, to blame the previous generation. But one thing I can tell you is that there's no generation that doesn't blame the previous one. There's none. Paul Simon even sang a song about it. Every generation blames the one before. So that's not new. But you have within you the ability to make a different life for yourself. And this is F.D. Roosevelt, who has on his desk, the buck stops here. As a leader, the buck stops with you. Make no mistake about that. If as a leader you are blaming your staff, you failed as a leader. You take responsibility, you fix it. Okay, next slide, please. You need to radiate faith, confidence, and self-belief, even when you have doubts. Okay? So, this is JFK saying, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Do you think when he said that he had no doubts? Of course he did. But he's a leader. He needs to project confidence, self-belief, faith. I belong to the Muhammad Ali school of thought. Muhammad Ali was perhaps our greatest ever boxer, ever. And Muhammad Ali used to say, I will knock him down in the 6th round. And he actually will. Okay? So because of that, I will say to you, I'm going to be a billionaire in the next 2 years. And I'm not claiming it by faith. I'm not going on, what do they call them? So Muhammad Ali said, I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was the greatest. So he said, I'm the greatest, and I said that even before I knew. And so there's a certain confidence that comes from challenging yourself, okay, and making you work towards what you've said. I don't mean if you don't have a Toyota Corolla today, and your salary is 100,000, you go and say, I'm going to buy a Rolls Royce tomorrow, and I claim it by faith. It's not going to happen. Okay? But if you have a steady work ethic, and you can work towards something, you can actually proclaim it and work towards it. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, and by the way, Ali also had doubts. So, having doubts is not a problem. It's being able to convince yourself to overcome those doubts. Okay, next slide. I'm almost done. Okay. You see, when you're trying to achieve something, just like Fadl said, just like my brother here said, there will be people that will knock you down. They will tell you all sorts of stuff. They're just negative. They just, they just want to pull you off. And there are others that are just bitter, angry people. They just don't like success. Okay? Village people. So this is saying there are some people who always seem angry and continuously look for conflict. Walk away from these people. The battle they are fighting isn't with you, it is with themselves. That doesn't mean you should only surround yourself with people that tell you nice things and validate you. Okay? A true friend will tell you what you're doing well and will tell you what you're not doing well. Those are the kinds of people to have. Don't have people that are only praise singers, and don't have people that are only negative and want to bring you down. So tightly control your circle is very, very important. It's very important for your mental health to start with. Okay? Negativity is like water dropping off on a stone. It can chip away at even the strongest person. So make sure that you control that tightly. Next slide, please. And then Fadl also talked about communication skills. It's very important. And it's actually a skill that can be learned. So usually, before now, at a party, I was usually quiet. I thought I was posing, don't talk to anybody, look mean. I thought I was posing. And I found it really difficult to talk to people. I just found it difficult. I think it was when I was doing my PhD, I had to learn to talk to people because you're doing research, you're interviewing people, you're doing very many things. And I found that actually it can be learned. And that by learning to talk to people, you actually learn so much. Talk to people on the bus, talk to people, ask them about their address, ask them about their their shoe, ask them about their fitness regime, their feeding. You'll be shocked at how much you learn and how applicable it is. So this is saying take advantage of every opportunity to practice your communication skills so that when important occasions arise, you will have the gift, the style, the sharpness, the clarity, and the emotions to affect other people. If there's one skill you will need as a leader in the emerging world, it is communication skills. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to argue with people without insults. Okay? You need to be able to hold a different opinion without denigrating the opinion of the other person or insulting the other person. You need to be able to say, actually, I didn't think about that before. Thank you for telling me. You need to be able to say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. It doesn't cost you anything. You need to be able to say, my knowledge is a bit weak in this area. Can you please teach me this or that? All those are really important communication skills. And this is a key ingredient that you need for the future. The final one, next slide, please. The final one, carpe diem, is Latin for seize the day. You need to seize opportunities when they arise. And so Shakespeare said there's a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures. I disagree slightly with Shakespeare. Slightly. You see, I'm not afraid to disagree with someone as famous as Shakespeare. And I disagree with him because the concept of a one-shot opportunity that will never come again in life is not true. Okay? There will be other opportunities if you continue to work hard, continue to do the things that you do. And that is where I'll stop today by wishing you the best in life and congratulating you on your graduation. Thank you very much.